everyone, this is Mizuki Arts. Welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be drawing a cute little fairy looking character in my sketchbook, because if you follow me on literally any social media platform, you'll know I've been on a serious fairy kick lately. I have been drawing fairies pretty much non-stop to the point where it's kind of the only thing I'm drawing. So today we're going to be taking this sketch and we're going to be lining it and painting it in my brand new sketchbook. This is a Canson watercolor sketchbook, if it can be called that, and I actually tore out the page because honestly the pages fall out of this type of sketchbook like super easy. I'm not even sure if it qualifies as a sketchbook and not like a watercolor block. I don't really know, but anyways, just before we get started, I want to very quickly say that by the time you're seeing this video, my shop will have a whole bunch of new fairy artworks and products and stuff. I say a whole bunch, but really it's 2 stickers and a pin, and they're really cute. So there's a link in the description box to my Etsy store, where you can see all that fun stuff if you want to check it out. I'm really excited about them, and obviously I have more fairy artwork coming along, so make sure to check them out. And obviously, any orders are greatly appreciated. But let's just get on to the artwork here. I knew going into this piece I wanted to draw, of course, a fairy, and I wanted her to be very cute and very much something that I would just draw for fun. This is definitely a piece that's just for me, and very much just my comfort zone. So I definitely wanted to give her lots of cute little freckles and little blushy marks and stuff, and curly hair, because I love drawing curly hair, and I also knew I wanted to incorporate pink, green, and purple into her color palette because I think those colors go really well together. So I had this sketch in my messy sketchbook with a girl with her hair kind of wrapping around her neck like a scarf, and she had flowers in it and stuff. So I decided to pull inspiration from that sketch for this piece. So I gave her very wispy curly hair. Really, this kind of hairstyle is very much a crutch for me. I'm always drawing characters with this kind of swishy, parted down the middle curly hair, so it's very much my comfort zone. But for the first piece in this sketchbook, I really wanted it to be I don't know, just very typical, very much something that I would draw just for fun, and I decided to, of course, make her a fairy of some sort because I couldn't help myself. I mean, I've been on such a fairy obsession. It is insane. That shop update I was talking about earlier, yeah, that's all fairies. I mean, and I have tons of artwork of fairies that I didn't turn into stickers or pins or anything, that honestly might come in a fairy shop update part 2, if this one does well, or if I just want to, honestly. But yeah, and for this piece, since it's only a headshot, not even a bust up, but just a headshot, I had to find some other way to make her look like a fairy because she's not going to have wings. I almost gave her weird wings on the side of her head, just because, but I ended up giving her these wiggly elf ears, just to mix it up because I've done so many normal elf ears. I also almost made her a mushroom fairy, with those freckles. I initially thought I was going to make her a mushroom fairy of some kind, but I decided not to in the end, as you can see with those flowers in her hair. If I'd gone that route, I'd probably use fungus or moss or something in her hair, clumps of moss with mushrooms on it or something, but I'm kind of glad I went with the flower route just because I got to looking at references of flowers. I have no idea what type this is, but it's kind of a mix between, I think it's called a peony and a rose. I'm not sure, honestly, but I got to kind of look at those references and study how they're built, which is something I often skip. Like, I often go the route of like the very stylized cartoony flower, so this was good for me, I think, just to look at some references. And you can probably see here, like, I'm not very confident with my lines in this piece. I was having like a really hard time. I've been getting a lot of like migraines recently, and those make my hands shaky, and my meds make my hands shaky. So when I finally feel up to drawing, you know, my hands are still, you know, feeling kind of weird. So I had a hard time with the line art, but finally I got through that, and here's my all decorated palette. I bought some cinema roll stickers online, and just covered my palette in them, and I finally got to do some painting, which was what I really wanted to do. It really goes back and forth for me, like, about what part of the process is my favorite, but I feel like consistently I love working with color. Like, it's so relaxing for me, just to get to sit down and like mush around some pigments, you know. And I mean, of course there's more thought in painting than that. I'm a painter, so I know, you know, there's more to it than just spreading some pigment around, but it's kind of, I don't know, relaxing. Like, compared to like with sketching and inking, I feel like I have to be like really focused and into it, but like painting, I can just go off in my head and kind of do whatever. At least with my style, that's how I feel, just because it's really not realistic, as you probably know if you follow any of my social media, because frankly, like, even though this character looks like especially pink, pretty much every character with fair skin that I draw like looks pretty gosh darn pink, you know. Like, I really don't draw realistic skin tones. Honestly, I think it's just my obsession with pink that has led me to this, because pretty much any piece that I make, I want to involve some level of pink, and if it's not in the skin, it will be somewhere in the outfit, and if it's not in the outfit, it will be in the skin. And I don't know what my deal is with that. I just love some red, yeah. One time my sister asked me, like, why are all the characters you draw pink? And I'm like, look, if you don't get it, you just don't get it. I mean, really, the only people that ask me that are the people that like don't absolutely die for that perfect shade of like baby pink, you know. Like, I feel like anyone that's as obsessed with pink as me like wouldn't question it for even a minute, you know. But like, when you really think about it, it's like sometimes I wonder if I can even like paint realistic skin tones. Like, I did it a couple times, like realistic skin colors and stuff, but like, I don't know, I have a problem. It's a real obsession. But yeah, this piece was no different. I just gave her like this really vibrant shiny blue makeup, so she looked really especially pink at the end, because I left out like some of that green shading that I usually do with skin. Like, I didn't add in any like yellows. Like, usually at the inner corner of the eye I add like a little bit of yellow, and then I do the same with the forehead, but this time I didn't, because I really wanted that makeup on her eyes to like stand out really well. So she just looks super pink, which honestly, you know, since I said I'm obsessed with pink, you know, it makes sense that I'm not gonna complain about it. One thing I'm really happy with this piece is like the decisions I made with like how she looks. Like, I love her cute little antenna. Like, I really wasn't sure about those because I didn't want her to look like an alien, you know. I love them though. They're so cute. They look like little butterfly antenna. And I added some like green to the ends of them, you'll see later. And I love her wiggly little ears too. If you've been following me on Instagram or Ko-fi or anywhere like that, you'll see some of my fairy paintings. I have been experimenting with the ears a little bit, and these are just like the most bizarre ones that I've made, you know. And they're just really cute. And I really love her little Cupid's bow, like the lips. I oftentimes get stuck drawing like the same facial features over and over again, and this one was still like super within my comfort zone, because as I mentioned in my last video, I am like a little bit art blocky right now, and definitely in need of like some comfort food type of art. Just drawing a different style of lips was like, I don't know, freeing. I feel like freeing is a little bit of an overstatement, but I do get kind of stuck drawing what looks like the same character over and over again, to the point where when I had my first like quote-unquote gallery appearance, someone asked me if they were all the same character or something, and I was like, oh, that's not good. And so I guess experimenting in a small way felt really good, even if it was just one facial feature and not like anything too different. I also really love her freckles, although I debated giving her a different color of freckles. You'll see later, I paint the freckles purple, but I kind of thought about giving her green freckles and purple hair instead of the other way around, just because I was kind of uncertain. I wanted the freckles to kind of stand out, and then other times I was like, no, the hair should be green. It's been so long since I painted a green-haired fairy, or a green-haired character at all, really. And since I'd literally painted a fairy with like purple hair and like these funky looking elf ears, like, what, 2 weeks ago? Was it 2 weeks ago that I put out the reel for that? I don't even remember. It was like my fairy in the moonlight painting or whatever I called it. But regardless, I ended up going with the green, and this also allowed the flowers to stand out because I shaded them with purple, and I knew they'd blend in a little bit too well if I painted the hair purple to match. So yeah, I then decided to shade the hair with pink, of course, because that will make the green pop a whole bunch more. And then I went in with this kind of like sagey green for that first layer, and then I decided I'd do a more muted, darker tone for like the shading and stuff. And the result was, of course, like super, super glossy looking hair, which made me extremely happy because that is my favorite type of hair to paint. And yeah, like I mentioned, this piece was very, very comfort zone themed. Like, this is very much like mashed potatoes, but if it were artwork, you know, like mashed potatoes, or like, you know, pizza and fries. Like, basically this is like, you know, the one thing that will make me happy to paint, you know, the same way that pizza makes any day better, or mashed potatoes, you know, remind me of home, or whatever, if that makes any sense. Speaking of comfort zones, I wanted to talk about a recent change in my art style that probably no one notices except me. But anyways, I've been doing less gel pen sparkles in my artwork recently. I ran out of white gel pen like two weeks ago, and yeah, I was forced to use like gouache paint to draw my sparkles and stuff, and that made them much more muted. And I noticed that this allowed a lot of my colors to shine more. So even after my new white gel pens arrived, I ordered like literally 12 of them, like a 12 pack of Artesa's white gel pens. even now that my new gel pens have arrived, I'm trying to kind of lay off of that bright highlight, because I've noticed how much sharper and more rigid and flat it makes my artwork. So I decided to work with both like a colored gouache, you know, like for this one I believe I used like a lime green, almost like a very pale kind of yellow green, and also the white gel pen in combination to create my sparkles. And I thought it created a much softer, less overwhelming look, which honestly was game changing for me. I did not think that running out of gel pen would like result in something like an epiphany for me, like an epiphany about using values in my artwork, you know, and like overdoing highlights. Like, I just never even processed that how much flatter it made my artwork look to just like go crazy, you know. And that's not to say that sparkles are a bad thing. Obviously, I've begun using glitter in almost all of my artwork, and I love using glitter. I love sparkles. I love all that, and it will not stop anytime soon. Rest assured. I noticed that there's a very fine line between glittery maximalism and like overdoing it. And the crazy part about it all is that the turning point for me was a piece that I did immediately after these new gel pens arrived, and it was like my fairy with bows piece that you can see on my Ko-fi page right now, and it's basically just a fairy holding like a tulip with tons of bows in her hair and stuff. It's pretty cute, but I overdid the sparkles by a lot. Like, I added like white wisps of hair to her dark brown hair, and tons of sparkles everywhere. And obviously I'm a sucker for sparkles and like using the gel pen to create like wisps of hair and stuff, but her hair was so dark that it just didn't make sense for there to be random strands of white in it, you know. And the sparkles looked like sharp and overwhelming to a degree, and obviously that speaks very like well of like the quality and saturation of the gel pen, but I just realized I was way overdoing it, and like your lightest lights don't have to be everywhere, you know. So that was my turning point for me, where I was like, maybe I don't need to use this as a crutch. And it actually like calls back to something that I mentioned in my like bad art habits video, where it's like you don't want to cover up your mistakes too much with something, and basically those sparkles are one of my bad habits. Like, I tend to use them to cover up mistakes, which, you know, is fine if you can fix it, you know, but you want to find other solutions to your mistakes rather than just, oh, it's fine, I'm gonna throw sparkles on it later, you know. Like, you want to find other ways to fix problems in your artwork, and sometimes even letting mistakes go is okay too. So yeah, that's kind of it kind of feels like the fulfillment of a prophecy. Like, I'm finally taking my own advice, like not taking a crutch. I have absolutely no idea if that makes any sense, but it was just something I thought of today while I was like adding all the details and stuff, and not worrying so much about like what I was going to do for the sparkles. Like, running out of gel pens like weirdly made me reflective, just because I had to adapt to something a little different with my style, you know. So I think, honestly, as weird as it sounds, I think it was important for me to have to adapt and problem solve, just because I found like new ways of doing things, I guess. And I found out ways to make details stand out a little bit more. For example, of course, without gel pens, I couldn't make certain details pop as much as I normally would, but I also figured out that using those sparkles strategically is a lot more effective than just putting them everywhere, and So in doing that, I planned out kind of where I was going to use the white gel pen. Like while I was doing the drawing, like I was like, okay, so I want her eyelashes to be like light green, and then I also want to use some like whites in there, just because the gel pen lines are like so delicate and so thin and pretty. And of course, the lightest parts of the like sparkly eyeshadow, I want there to be like little shines, because of course there would be. That's the brightest part of the image, and I want there to be little sparkles everywhere and like little white freckles and stuff, but I don't want it to overwhelm the piece, you know? I've been going on about this for a little bit too long, so I'll move on to something else. But you know, it was just something that really made me like reflect a lot, and really changed my art, I think, quite a bit, even if it's something that maybe only I notice. I don't know. This is something else that's kind of random, but I also realized I've been drawing fairies for quite a while. I mean, I've been drawing other things in between, so obviously these last couple months have been like a huge pickup and like, or a huge increase in how many fairies I've been drawing. But I realized like even like last spring, last summer, last fall, into the winter, like I was drawing fairies a lot. So it's like, I don't know, it seems like my obsession's been going on for a lot longer than I initially thought. Honestly, I can't believe I'm just now like getting to making like stickers and pins and stuff, because I mean, I've drawn a lot of fairies, and you can see that, I think, in my shorts and in like my reels and stuff, like all of those little short videos I've made where I'm drawing fairies. And even I had longer videos on YouTube where I was drawing fairies, like my Plants as Fairies video. Yeah, that's all a product of this obsession that I just had no idea was going on until it like exploded this spring, you know. But I'm having a blast with it, and I honestly, one day I want to like make a picture book or something with like fairies. I've done a whole bunch of like scans recently of my artwork, particularly fairies, so maybe I'll put together like an art book of sorts, or like a magazine of some kind. So let me know if you guys would be interested in that, especially if it's like just fairies and just like fairy sketches and stuff. I don't know. I might make it, but we'll see what happens. I kind of have an obsession right now, of course, but who knows, maybe I'll fall off of that and move on to something else before I know it. But yeah, that's something I've been playing around with the idea of too. I even actually like did a couple page layouts just to see what I might want it to look like, and designed like a mock-up cover and stuff. I mean, to be honest, I'm like several pages in. I just don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what it's turning into. So I don't know if it's ever going to be a thing ever. It will probably honestly never leave my Procreate app. It'll probably just sit there. So I'm just mentioning it now, because if you guys are interested, maybe I'll like move forward with that project. Anyways, here I am just adding some little details like shading and little green freckles, because I hadn't yet gone in with like the opaque gouache for the purple freckles, and I just wanted to add like a little bit of dimension and detail to her skin, so it's not just, you know, pure pastel pink. Usually when I'm painting skin, I add in like little bits of yellow, blue, green, purple, even though I usually oversimplify and say, look, pink. I usually do add lots of random kind of rainbow hues to it, but in this piece I just really didn't, because I really did want her to look like very pink. So I just wanted to add like a little bit of shading and a little bit of detail, and then in her hair I added some darker greens, just because I realized a lot of my art has been looking pretty flat lately, and I wanted to fix that by adding some values. That's one of the biggest things I've learned about since starting to take art classes in college, is adding like values, lights and darks, really pushing things a little bit. Even though this piece I don't think is the best example of that, I do feel like I put in more values than usual. Definitely one of those people that is like really fond of like the mid ground, you know, like I don't like things to be too light or too dark. I'm kind of like a middle range kind of person, so I really have to like push myself sometimes to really darken things down or lighten them up, just so that things don't all melt together too much, you know. And then I went in with my purple and added those lovely purple freckles. Honestly, this part was so fun. Like, it might be one of my favorite parts of the whole process, just because it was just like, I don't know, she looks like a little mushroom, you know, like she looks like a little pink and purple, fantastical, very poisonous mushroom. Especially adding those like little spots to her ears and like tiny little freckles at the inner corner of her eyes. I just thought that was like a ton of fun. And I added some to like the sides of her brow bone and such, and that was just, I don't know, adding freckles is so much fun. Like, little details to the skin can really bring a piece to life, and I really love painting skin as it is. I feel like I've talked about painting skin a lot in this video, just because frankly it's something I focus on a lot when I'm painting a face. And here I am finally going in with that gouache to lighten up those lashes. As you can see, I chose like a very pale green, and I added some of it also to the creases in her eyelids because I cannot help myself. And I took that same green and I did some pale little sparkles. And I really love the dimension of using color in sparkles, and then also using like white gel pen too. You'll see later in the piece, of course, what I was talking about earlier, where it kind of helps things to not look too flat. I suppose I'll kind of end off this video by talking about how my first year of college went. As some of you may know, I graduated high school last spring, and now I'm attending quote-unquote art school, and I'm working on getting a degree in illustration. Since it was my first year, I did a lot of like very basic kind of core classes for my degree. So I did a lot of stuff like my English course and science and that kind of thing, but I did get to take like 4 different art classes. I took art history, drawing 1, ceramics, and graphic design, and I loved pretty much all of them. I mean, ceramics wasn't my favorite, but I don't know if I want to go too in depth on how that went, but I really did enjoy drawing 1, graphic design, and art history was really interesting too. I'd say if you're going into art school, make sure that you get to know your professors as well as you can, just because if your professors know that you're an art kid, so to speak, then they might be able to help you out on a more personal level. Like, they might have advice for your style, or advice for like where you want to go directionally speaking. Hopefully that makes some sense, but anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video and listening to me talk about random things, and talk about fairies and art and the progress on my formal arts training and all these other random things. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time. Bye! Real quick before I get going, I want to say a quick thank you to Ashley for supporting me on Ko-fi. Thank you so much, Ashley. Your support means the world to me. If anyone else wants to go over and check out my Ko-fi page for all these fun rewards, the link will be in the description box.